Welcome to my channel. This is my brother Keegan, and we're up here at his place right now for a change in setting. And if you've seen any of the kind of videos I make on my channel, just to let you know, he's at the same kind of frequency I'm on. And for this video, I decided that I wanted to make it a Q&A style, where me and my brother Keegan, we came up with a bunch of different questions that we were going to ask each other and share our perspectives on, and I thought it would make a cool video to share on my channel. So I have a bunch of different questions here listed where I'm going to ask him and then he'll ask me, and we're both going to share our different outlooks on them. And since he's the guest, I'm going to begin by asking him the questions. So for the first question, what do you think memory is?
I guess it's definitely harder when you're put on the spot asking questions like this. But I guess memory is a natural form of a collective experience bank, I guess, where throughout your time here, you collectively take in all these experiences and pick up on patterns, and you can use that to register what's happening now through what you've experienced in the past.
To sort of better understand yourself right now and what's happening?
I guess, yeah, because as a kid, I personally can't really remember much about being a kid, but as you get older, you can look back on past events and
recollect more.
It seems to be a tool to help us understand what's going on now.
That's actually kind of what made me want to ask you that question in particular, is that it seems like we pick up memory as we go, which kind of makes the idea of it being a sort of bank for working with right now, it makes more sense.
And it's constantly building, whether it's a memory that you can easily go back to, or if it's something that hides behind your actions, if you will. Something that makes you who you are.
Like a sort of unconscious judgment of what's happening?
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. When we come across something new, the first thing we rely on to, like, get to know, feel out the situation is that memory bank of, is this foreign, is this familiar, is this feel safe, does this feel not safe, you know? And
I think that's why things that we're unfamiliar with are so hard to internalize, is because it's something A, we've never experienced, or
put in that bank,
or B, it's something we've never even thought of experiencing. So it completely takes away from the picture you paint, you know, through your memory and what you think is going to happen, and then when something completely different happens, it throws you off your balance.
You don't know what to base it off of.
Exactly.
No, that's a pretty good take on it. For the next question, do you think everything, like everything, mind, matter, whatever you want to call it, do you think everything has some sort of consciousness to it? Or do you think only we, or organisms, animals, I guess, are the only bearers of consciousness, of observation of the universe they're in?
It's hard to say, and I can only speak off of my 21 years of being conscious. It's hard to say whether or not everything has consciousness, because quite simply I don't know. And it's something that through psychedelic experiences I've had the feeling that consciousness is something that is fundamental to reality and makes up our reality. And
you think it plays in the same field as a law of reality, or like
if
what we call laws of physics?
yeah,
Because I have heard that
Yes.
before, that physicists, scientists are starting to realize, oh shit, this consciousness very might be a law of reality, just like they call gravity and mass and all the schemes of physics, those laws. They're starting to consider that maybe this consciousness is a law of reality and doesn't budge in any way.
it doesn't seem to. It seems to be constant, if you will, something that's prevalent within us all the time. You can't escape it. You can't stop being conscious. Certain drugs seem to give you an effect of unconsciousness, anesthetics, things that put you out.
Or even a state of sleep. But
As far as we know, that's just something chemically, I don't know how to explain it because I haven't done much of my own research on it, but it seems to be inhibiting the ability to understand or perceive what's going on.
yeah, that's what I think too.
Your autonomous body is still functioning, it's still living, but the ability to understand or perceive you is gone.
Kind of like the observation is still there, but the observer of what is observed seems to be what goes in and out.
And the fact that we've broken those grounds and been able to find something that actually does that raises even more question to what consciousness is. The fact that we do have the ability to quiet it down or make it seem like a time lapse happened where you go to sleep and then come back.
Yeah.
And you're immediately you again, but delirious and confused as to why you just had that experience.
Do you think it fits into like what physicists explain? Like, do you think it's this sort of electrical charge or maybe even a material in you that is accessible in the ways that we research things, or do you think it completely pierces through our understandings of how this thing we're in works?
I think we can't conceptualize it. I don't think... I think it's funny that I've said this to you before, but scientists, when you ask them where consciousness is, they try and point to it. And that's a big issue, is I think we try and materialize everything that's in existence. Whether it's...
Yep. That's where the major cut is.
Right, we try and look at it and find it, and possibly I think our bodies or minds cannot actually visualize consciousness, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It makes total sense. Like,
or answers your statement.
No, it does. It does, because basically, how could we know if this TV right here is conscious or this table is conscious? The way I think about it is like what we call conscious is something that fits this sort of picture where it can react to you. But like everything reacts to you, just not in these ways that you define as a conscious reaction.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we can't really know if, beyond our subjectivity, if other things are conscious. Like, I assume you are conscious.
Right. Because I appear conscious to you.
Exactly.
And
I
we
don't.
can bounce ideas off of each other.
You react to me in a conscious way. What I define.
You wouldn't be
as,
having this discussion with a flower right now.
Yes, or the table, you know? Maybe with psychedelics, you know? but in the reality that you regularly navigate through, there are things that appear here and that appear just put there, not doing anything. And I think that differentiation is the problem with that question, you know. We can't understand if something else is conscious. We assume. Alright, this is my last question to you.
Okay.
This one's kind of weird. I didn't really word it right. But why do you think nature appears uniform or in some sort of order? The way a plant grows or the way planets orbit. What is that? Is it even order? Is it some sort of control going on or some sort of pattern-based event?
I think it appears in control, but it can constantly change states depending on events that happen. And if we left Earth entirely alone, it would overrun us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cities would become infested with
be the blob.
Nature. And I think there is a form of control, but in a different sense that we have. We can't understand what kind of control, and I think that's what we're searching for, is what is this source of control? Why does a tree know how to grow?
That's exactly what I'm talking
Why
about.
does light know how to light? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So I think we've created the question based off of our understanding of control.
So, do you think it's just a massive pattern? Because we pick up on, I guess what you could call ordinary or regular mundane patterns where like just seeing the nonchalant designs and things.
Right.
Do you think that is the same thing that applies to how a tree knows what to do with itself? Like,
I think it's odd that there's a specific form where, I don't know if you've discussed with any of your viewers the Fibonacci.
I actually
sequence,
haven't.
Which would
That
be
would make a
which
good
would
video.
be very good video. But the fact that we picked up on that and that we recognized that there is a specific pattern to how nature presents itself to us.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I'm talking about.
And that, in the sense, is the control I think we're talking about. That it knows how to show itself. We don't actually put effort into seeing what we see. It just seems to be visual to us.
There.
It's exactly there.
So, do you think, because, like, you know how scientists talk about, like, it's the idea of Einstein's relativity theory is that, like, we are a limited sensory organ.
Very much so, yeah.
Where we are only seeing these certain things. So, like, do you think the ideas of these patterns and these orders of control reside within whatever we are and are not actually in order? Or...
So you're saying we basically assemble.
Yes. Do you think we are the assemblers of...
And possibly with my theory that we are just the universe trying to understand itself,
Mm-hmm.
the order that it constructs, or the control that it constructs, is within itself. Within you. Within your perception. The way that your sensories collectively make this narrow point in existence, it's trying to understand the control.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a specific answer to that question, in all honesty. It's hard to say, because we have a very specific definition of control and what that is.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so that was the 3 questions that I came up with to ask Keegan. And he came up with 3 other questions as well that he wanted to ask me, so now we'll do that. You don't gotta do them in order. Throw me right off, dude.
Okay. Well, I guess the first one I'll hit you with is, what do you think fear is? What do you think causes that emotion or that specific idea?
Well, I think just that is that fear is, at its neutral state, an emotion. It's this feeling. And I personally haven't thought of it myself beyond the idea of it being tied into survival. This feeling of, because it's relatable. Mm-hmm. The scenarios in which spike fear in you can be correlated to survivalistic like scenarios at times, where you go, oh shit, the reason I got scared of that kind of seems like I was trying to protect my tribe, or I was fucking like hangry.
Right.
Hangry
right.
is you're pissed off because you're hungry, you know? That's not fear. That's not fear, but it's kind of the same idea, where I think it's this, at first, primal driven instinct, I guess, to defend this thing where you eat, you drink, you need to sleep every now and then, and you need to be warm, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever those things are that somehow enables you to keep going, I feel like the presence of fear is when those aspects, originally, when those aspects would begin to kind of crumble. You like scarcity in food and water, or
mm-hmm.
it gets really cold and you didn't know it was about to get that cold, and all of a sudden there's feelings of fear, and we adapted to use them as like warnings.
Right.
That something about our survival is at stake. Yeah. And but the thing is, it has massively shifted in what fear is
mm-hmm.
now. Like,
we've socialized it.
Yes, I still think it's tied into
mm-hmm.
this primal urge to stay alive, but...
And that's the thing, is if you look at things that reproduce, here on Earth anyway, there's a noticeable effort to try and keep its population up.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly reproducing.
Yeah.
And I think fear may stem from a instinctual
that's another
experience
factor.
Where something occurred that threatened our existence, and we needed to adapt to that experience. And it's come so far that we've let fear control our existence, and mm-hmm. we do things based off of fear inevitably now.
It's not about, and I forgot to mention one of the aspects, another aspect of fear, pain, physical pain. You get really scared when you're about to experience physical pain, and that's another one. But what we get scared of these days in this generation usually doesn't have anything to fucking do
Right.
At least in our country, our third world country, or whatever it's called, with survival. It has to do with you get scared in this unconscious sense because you're losing an argument, or your friends aren't agreeing with you or accepting you into their clique. And it's completely untied from surviving, and it's more about egoic desire now, where it's like, oh shit, she doesn't like me because of what I did. And I guess that's more anxiety rather than fear, but like the fear of rejection, I guess.
Right.
Or the fear of...
And it depends on what you want to call it.
Being scared of your own physical appearance.
Not getting a job promotion, not being able to get the girl you want.
I guess when you really boil it down, there's still this primalistic, survivalistic urge, but we don't associate it with that anymore. We associate it with, oh fuck, I hope I get this job, or oh my god, I'm really fat, or shit, my friends don't accept me. You know, it has nothing to do with staying alive.
So to sum it up, fear is an instinctual feeling to move through an experience that caused that fear.
But we have heavily toxified it.
Through the amount of experience everybody's
Honestly,
had.
We've gotten way too comfortable with existing. And we think it's just fucking normal, you know?
Yep.
And I get why fear was to defend your existence in the very beginning, but it's not about defending your existence anymore.
Think about how many fearful events happened to lead up to our existence. Yeah. Me and you, here now. Throughout
fearful, or everybody's?
Everybody's to say. Everybody's to say to lead up to this very moment that you're listening to this video. The amount of fear that has been involved, that has manipulated us to this point in time now.
Guarantee you, if you're watching this video, fear has played an aspect as to why you're even watching this or came across this video or my channel.
Might not be something that you regularly even think about. So, I think we've gotten through that question.
Yeah, that was basically my take on it.
Okay. This one I think is really good. Why do you think we try to explain what enlightenment is?
Well, that's a good question, because a good enough question is why do we try to explain things. But as to why we try to explain enlightenment, I guess...
First of all, what do you think enlightenment is? In your definition.
A release of tension within all facets of you that are tense or can be tensed, I guess, is that's a heavy loaded statement, but it is truly how I interpret enlightenment, and I can't really explain it in the senses of how it makes you feel or the kind of person it makes you when you're enlightened. But I do think it's something that is... There's a reason we've called this thing enlightenment. And I think it is a state that you are able to, I guess, remember or reintegrate or reevaluate, where you go, oh yeah, that's right. And it's as simple as that, I guess. And if that doesn't make sense, you should research more about the people who use these terms, enlightenment, because they explain it in way more depth than I probably would be able to, but that is what it means to me. But the reason I think we try to explain it, there was a quote I think I've told you that I've heard. This guy said, I know I've told you actually because we actually debated about it, was this guy said, humans are a storytelling species, where we like to tell stories. Basically, humans, language speakers, this language that we created was only to convey stories. It was to convey mental imagery and this sort of, you're trying to explain something.
Everything.
We are in explaining. There's something within us that is able to, or at least tries to, describe things. And language, I feel, is entirely based around the idea of trying to explain your stories. Because they're all stories, after all. We all started from this same point of learning your language and learning, okay, that's what that means, and using your words to explain what you mean. But why do we explain? Why do we try to explain
enlightenment to someone who is quote-unquote not enlightened?
Well, that is different to me. The idea of trying to explain enlightenment to somebody who isn't enlightened versus trying to explain enlightenment to yourself on your own time. Because I feel like when you're explaining enlightenment to somebody, it's this sort of, yo, come hang out with me. The water's nice.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I highly doubt you won't like it. You know? This kind of feeling of like, come play. Come back over on this side. But when you try to explain it to yourself, that person that tries to convince others to come and hang out, you think you're in it, right? And when you try to explain that to yourself, it takes on a different tone of like, why am I trying to